Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. And welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I am Reverend Dr. D. Richard Dugan, and we have a very special guest in studio. I wish I could say that, but I'm going to say it anyway in studio. It's in our Zoom studio. We have with us the creator, the author of Bos-Up Moments, Field Guide to Prosper in Business, Work, and Life, Scott Abbott, all the way from a championship state and city. Hey, welcome to Tell Me Your Story. It's great to have you with us.
Dr. D, thank you for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah, and people are going, huh? Championship city? What are you talking about? Well, you know what? I only saw the highlights on the news, okay? But it was a spectacular game that the Hoosiers, the Indiana Hoosiers football team played. I don't know that the basketball team would have done as well on the gridiron, but your Hoosiers are college national champions.
Indeed, we are.
And that's got to feel pretty good, even though you weren't out on the field, hiking or receiving the ball
I've been
or
in that
blocking tackles.
But I think I've earned a little bit of right to have some skin in the game. I've sat in that stadium over the last 20 years with only a handful of people, so I've been through the dark days, so to speak, and last season, this season, 16-0. And to your point, I think the correlation between the team itself and the game and life and a lot of things that I do in the world, that's just enhanced the experience, the story, the alignment, the fusion of vision and execution and culture and chemistry. It's just been a great ride and a lot of fun. I'm a little tired today. I can't lie, but we're excited here.
How's your throat? You feeling okay in the throat there?
I'm good. I'm still recovering. I was at the Rose Bowl game, and I'm not kidding. I yelled so much at the Rose Bowl game, and then last week's Atlanta game, Peach Bowl. But we'll recover. It's all worth it.
Absolutely. But it does something for us, both emotionally and psychologically. And I realize that there are winners and losers. That's true. But when you think about it, Florida did make it to the final game, just like my D-backs back in 2001 made it. And so did the Yankees. But, in those situations, there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. I'm sorry, we don't all get participation trophies. It doesn't work that way. But what I want to ask you is about how, not so much the game, but in this case, the win, how that plays into this concept that you have created. And you have this series again called Boss-Up Moments. which is the companion. This what I have in my hand. It's Volume One Catalyst. I use that word a lot in this program. Boss Up, the solution to to build, run, and what is this? Scale great companies and leveraging business opportunity operating systems, AI, and coaching. How does something like this event, let's just say my company, Acme Widgets, we have the softball team and we go out and we play the season and we get to the championship game and we play and we win. And maybe we won by one. That's what they say. You don't have to win by 100. You only need to win by one. And we are just jazzed. And we come in Monday morning and we're yelling and screaming in the warehouse, getting ready to go to work. How does something like this play into this concept of boss up?
Well, I think the book you're referencing, Boss Up Moments, we believe in a concept that we like to have some fun with, carpe momentum. People have heard of carpe diem and
Mm-hmm.
carpe vita, but we believe momentum creates momentum. And so, to your point, using the word encouraging and energetic, winning is encouraging and fun and energetic. And counterintuitively, so can losing be energetic because it motivates you to clean up. To button up, to improve and get to the next level, unless it doesn't. And that's actually where Boss Up Moments comes in. Boss Up, the first book, is really around the mechanics, the engineering, how to build, run, and scale a great company. And then Moments is more around the mindset, the heart set, without sounding a little cliche, the vibe, if you will, the emotional intelligence versus the IQ per se. And I think the game and sports, why it's such a popular metaphor, is there's a lot of parallels in business, work, and life. We believe in what we call the essential concepts, tools, and disciplines. There's so many in business that come from sports. Dust yourself off, right? And I mean the list is long. So I think it's one thing to win. It's another thing to ensure that it's not a one-time event. Back to momentum and consistency, and to do that, we believe you do need good systems and good structure that provide continuity. Players come and go, and games start and end, but life and work, ideally, we're thinking more about legacy and continuity and cohesion. So yeah, I think it's great to have the oomph that comes from a victory, but I think it's more important to establish and incorporate the right structure and processes and systems and alignment so it continues and it's not just a one-time event.
Years ago when I first got into this business, and I'd been in it for maybe 10, 20 years, um, and I was, again, I'm following the Diamondbacks and the Suns, and because I was living in Phoenix at the time. And even our Cardinals, I think, once made it to the Super Bowl. But I often wondered, where's my where's my championship game or event? Where's my Super Bowl? Where's my gold medal? And I even started looking at the entertainment industry. And we're right now, here we are, early part of 2026, and we're in the awards season for the entertainment industry. All right, they just did the Golden Globes, the Grammys are coming, the Oscars are next, and when I listen to some of the speeches, I I'm thinking, but did you really do that movie you won the Oscar for to win the Oscar? I mean, was that really your goal? Or was it to do what it is that you love doing, acting and performing and pretending and so forth and so on? Is that really what it was about? And this is like icing on the cake. And I kind of looked at that, and then I looked at what I was saying earlier, and I'm thinking, I may never get a Super Bowl ring or an NBA title or a World Series championship, et cetera, et cetera. But what I have and what I have created, and you just used the word legacy just a moment ago, the legacy I'm leaving behind, as long as as long as YouTube and SoundCloud and all the others are still there, the legacy I'm leaving behind with these programs, you know what? I'm good with that. And what I'm doing with you right now, it's like, and I've described it this way, it's like Christmas, opening up a Christmas present labeled Scott Abbott. and getting to know Scott. So talk to us about this aspect of Boss Up, which, by the way, I love what you have at the very top of this particular book, Volume 1 Catalyst. Here are the words at the top of this book with little stars, and it says, "These pages are magic." Talk to us about the magic in regards to us as individuals doing that which we love, our life's purpose, in regards to Boss Up.
Yeah, no, thanks. So we're having a little fun with that, obviously, but you've got a copy. So
Yep.
one of the fun things, our coaches, we've got about 75 coaches around the world as part of our Boss Up Coaching Solution Academy, and we kind of have a fun little magic trick. And if you open up the book and you go to the table of moments, and you're having one-on-one coaching, or you're talking to somebody and they're sharing a story, what's going on, their situation, where they want to go, and simply ask, okay, with your situation in mind, look at these 40 moments and what moment sparks you? What moment rises above the others and compels you to call it out? And inevitably somebody look and they go, burdens or burnout or boundaries or courage or recognition. And we simply ask, well, can you explain why that word recognition or boundaries resonates with you today? And they explain it. Then we say, go to the page. In this case, recognition is 108, right? And they open it up and they get a wonderful little explanation that they read. And they go, does that correlate with what you're thinking and what you're hoping to understand? Yeah, it does. And then they turn the page and there's this little QR code that goes to a video. So it's a very modern, flexible, and inclusive way to help people with learning and development, upskill, cross-skill. They watch a 3.5, 4-minute video, then they summarize it, and then last but not least, they go to the prompts. And they get to use the prompts for journaling or for AI. And what's really cool, when you take AI and journaling, good old-fashioned pen and paper along with AI, you get this wonderful magic-like insight and addition to your cognitive resonance and thinking. So, as I said, we had a little fun with it, but it does work. If I could say so, us in the group are doing really well with the book. It's resonating on a lot of levels in terms of helping people to, again, be more mindful and confident. And instead of having to go and download a bunch of school courses or read a bunch of books, each moment's only 4 pages in totality, very visual. So as I said, we're having some fun with it, but I think that's kind of a more real version of magic, if I may.
I like it. I really do. By the way, I like it so much. I'm going to tell you folks that Boss Up Moments, again, it is the field guide. I like that field guide to prosper in business, work, and life. This isn't just about the work that we do. This is about the life that we live. And the website, ladies and gentlemen, and I really like this, Scott. It is Scott Abbott ABC.com. That's scottabottabc.com, which we will be linked to as well. And we will continue our conversation. Just a reminder, this is Tell Me Your Story. I am Reverend Dr. D. Richard Dugan. He is Scott Abbott, and I guess you could call it the series of books, Boss Up. And there is magic in these pages. And I think that that's a wonderful concept of making each of these chapters short, but it's not a book that you're going to sit down and you're going to read cover to cover.
No.
This book is dedicated to our Boss Up coaches and clients. Thank you for leading with purpose, delivering with excellence, and always building better together. We have a situation right now, and it's been going on for a long time. And we're not going to blame anybody. There's no judgment here, but we've got a situation in our country right now, pretty much everywhere. We got problems with attitude, with mindset, with all of these different things that are causing divisions in all different areas. Okay, we won't even go into details because that's not what we want to talk about. I want to talk about how you, as this coach of the Boss Up movement, so to speak, is helping to, I don't want to say fill the gaps, but bring people together to remove the division, saying, look, whatever, and this was the way it was phrased to me when I first started in the business, in radio. They said, you got all kinds of stuff going on outside. All right. When you come in the front door of the radio station, you leave all that stuff outside. If you've got issues and so forth in the office space and so forth, and you go into the booth to go on the air and so forth, you leave all that stuff outside the door. Okay? But that's easier said than done. Talk to us about how you teach people, coach people, mentor people to begin to realize that most of that, if not all of that stuff, really irrelevant to what's important.
Yeah, well, to your point, we've all heard the expression, it's not personal, it's business, which I would say is rubbish, right? We're
Yep.
people, we work, we live. I kind of have an opinion about work-life balance as well. I think uh, it's not a good uh, perspective. I prefer harmony. If you just visualize trying to balance on a beam or a ball, it's always uncomfortable. Harmony is, there's different times where you're listening to the music. It's loud, it's low. You've got seasons, you've got dynamics. And so I think at the end of the day, and I do think we've got a lot of challenges and opportunities today, especially with the advent of AI and the hybrid workforce coming out of COVID and five generations in the workplace. I mean, we're dealing with a lot of again dynamics that are both nuanced and very, very tangible, socioeconomic. So what we try to do, both Boss-Up, is to help our clients and specifically leaders and contributors to the company leverage what we call the essential concepts, tools, and disciplines to be successful in work and life. And we do it with both mechanics and engineering. Good old fashioned things like standard operating processes are clarified, and vision ties into values, ties into alignment and production and all that kind of corporate, P&L and profit and loss and all that. But at the same time, to your point, the primary assets walk in and out every day. These things called humans. And us humans have DNA. We're flawed. We're imperfect. So what we try to do is we just try to give them lightweight coaching, which I would say is really strategic and tactical in terms, to your point, of how to overcome concepts and issues like courage, conflict, and to bring in courage and to set good boundaries. Right. I think at the end of the day, most people struggle because they just haven't learned how to communicate properly and collaborate properly. In fact, one of our popular frameworks is called CLEAR. And during meetings and sessions and coaching, we ask for a pursuit of clear. Clear is both the word clarity, right? Let's get through to the exact understanding for both of us, be understood and understand. But it's also an acronym. And the acronym stands for collaborative, logical, empathetic, authentic, and resilient. And just that right there, Dr. D, if you commit to those bylaws, I say with a wink, if you think of those as your ground rules and you hold each other accountable to those, again, you're going to get to that next level of goodness, unless you're BSing each other and you're not being sincere. So if you're collaborative, logical, empathetic, authentic, and resilient, and you have good structures and systems, and you're committed to trying to improve yourself from both a ability standpoint and a perspective standpoint, more often than not, things are going to get better. And then last but not least, back even the sports and winning, it's just not a one-time thing, right? You got to continue to do it. People ask me for how long? Forever. If you're not growing, you're dying. And so ideally you're always, and there's job security in that, by the way, both in work and life, to continue to not do it in stupid ways, but to continue to always try to grow and improve and listen and learn and be a better human.
I want to ask you how we get past one in particular fear that most, will say, employees or workers have, and that's being fired. My wife and I we moved from Santa Barbara to Twin Peaks, which is near Lake Arrowhead, California. Now, because there was so much going on, I never got around to informing my employer that we were moving, let alone when we did move, that we had moved. Now, you might say, well, how could you do that? How would they not know because you're not showing up for work? Talking about COVID, and we had nobody coming into the studio. We started using Skype and then shifted over to Zoom and like what we're doing here. And I was able to work remotely, even from home when we were in Santa Barbara. So I was doing the job for nearly a month before I informed them that we had moved, which just because of the logistics in that regard. And so I explained to them the whole situation. And of course, I am still employed. But there was this fear inside that, oh my God, if I tell them, even though I'm doing the job, they're going to say, well, I'm sorry, but you got to live closer to the station, blah, 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 blah. And one of the things that I think about quite often is that corporations, the hierarchy, if you will, up in the penthouse or slightly below, or HR, whatever, um, does not seem to understand, at least in the, I'll say in the stereotype, that it is the people at the bottom of the pyramid, if you will. They're the ones that are doing the work that's making you the money and getting you those giant $1 million bonuses, et cetera, et cetera. And it's what you said earlier. It is the people in that regard. But there was an incident that happened in 2008. I saw this was a news story that was there short time and was gone. And this was basically it. Motorola. And this may have been earlier than that, but anyway, so hundreds of thousands of people in 2008 during that what they call the Great Recession lost their jobs. And the first thing that went through my mind, aside from the compassion for the fact that they have no work and now no money coming in, is I wonder how many of those people hated their jobs and actually were happy that they weren't tied down anymore. And of course, as you may be aware, shortly thereafter was the great entrepreneurial explosion or boom, right? Where small businesses popped up everywhere because a lot of these folks who had lost their jobs created their own businesses, that kind of thing. But many of them, of course, had resentment towards the company, the higher ups, because they didn't understand. It's one of the reasons I love that one program, Undercover Boss. That is a fantastic program. It really teaches a great lesson, not just to the workers, but also to the owners and the corporate heads. Can you talk to us about how you overcome that mindset that I'm sure is prevalent? I mean, listen to how they talk about Elon Musk or many of the other billionaires, or I don't know if there's a trillionaire yet, maybe by now. How do we overcome that? Because that has got to get in the way of the success of a company, the resiliency of the company, and the productivity, if that's what's really important. Talk to us about that if you can.
Yeah, I think it's a two-way street, and it is 2026. I think use the word as a stereotype. I've been in business and work and various roles of starting and running and building and screwing up and failing and doing some things that I think were okay over the last 40 years. And I would say I think the good news is that hardcore, thou art lowly, really doesn't fly too much today. I don't see a lot of that. I've coached hundreds of companies. I've worked with a lot. I think that's getting less and less. But again, I do think there's this challenge that we have a deal, right? And it always reminds me of there was a cartoon of a president talking to a finance person. The finance person says, "What if we trade our people and they leave?" The president says, "What if we don't train them and they stay?" And so I think because of COVID, I do think there's a responsibility to both parties. Number one, to your point, employees should be selfish to their lives, to their livelihoods, right? They should do what's best for them and their family. And an employer obviously has to also be mindful of, especially if it's a publicly traded company or even private, that profit and cash flow and expenses and operations and all these terms like efficiency and effectiveness, that they're there, right? Because that's for failure. You go back to Motorola screwed up big time because they just didn't get the right technology out. Other people passed them by, and they woke up one day and they saw that they were losing a lot of money and they had to do what they had to do. And now they're like a 16th of the size, because I used to work out of Chicago just down the street from them. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, and I know it sounds cliche, back to culture and values and courtesy and transparency. I think most companies today just need to be matter of fact that the employees are going to take care of themselves, and ideally they provide a safe, uh, mutually beneficial, win-win environment. And let's be honest, a lot of work are jobs, job. They're
Mm.
not always fun, but you got to do what you got to do to provide. And so I just think at the end of the day, if everybody could just sort of have that, what I call an agreement-based commitment, that we're together, but we're also individuals. Things are easier that way, and
Mm.
that's what we try to do at Boss-Up, is to share that you got to have systems and soul. You got to have vision and victory. You got to have right profit and purpose, and that's not easy, and that's why we're in the world, and that's why, because it's hard to read the label from inside the box. So yeah, it's a challenge, but I'd also say that's something that we get to work on, and something we get to do as humans, is to improve both at the office and at home.
Mm. What do you mean you can't read inside the box? Come on, get with the program. I mean, Schrodinger's cat. He's either dead or alive, one of the two. And that's another thing too, I, as a manager slash supervisor, which I've never really taken on that title, but I was operations manager for a number of stations. And what set me apart from other operations managers, was I was doing the same job that everybody else that I was supervising was doing. So I wasn't supervising other people, i.e., I'm up one step from them. No, I'm on the same level with them. And as such, when they come to me with a problem that I wasn't aware of, what have you, I'm looking at it from a whole different perspective. I'm looking at it as the worker, and I have never felt superior. I have always tried to be equal to in that respect, and enjoy what we were doing. And I've had a couple of instances where, yeah, I hated it, but I had to fire some people because they weren't achieving the results we wanted. When I train people, I train them how I do it, and then I tell them, now, the result that we, the radio station, want. I don't care how you get it. If you stand on your head eating a banana, okay, and you get the result we want, perfect, because you got the result we wanted. And I really did my best to encourage that, to find your style. Okay. I mean, if there's a problem with your style that we need to work on in terms of, I don't know, protocol and that kind of thing, which we really didn't have, we'll deal with that. But it was always, I mean, I've been very fortunate in that regard. I don't know that many management positions are held by people who actually did the work. It's one of the reasons why, when I think of politics in particular, not going anyplace in particular, but most politicians have never gotten dirt under their fingernails, have never done the work. And some would say, well, they're privileged. Well, all right, fine. You want to pass that judgment? Fine. I'm not. All I'm saying is, it would be nice if you got some dirt under your fingernails. You picked up a shovel, a rake, a hoe, mowed the lawn, dusted the furniture, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, so that you know what it is your constituents are going through. That's always been like paramount from my perspective. Do you see that there's an importance in that kind of a comparison, or in terms of an understanding? Again, that's what I loved about Undercover Boss, was the CEO, for example, would dress up, hide their appearance and everything, go into the various brick and mortars that they were that they owned or what have you, and would be trained by the employees to do the job. And of course, when you got to the end of the program, they were doing an evaluation, and some of the people were given great gifts and bonuses and so forth and promotions, and some were let go because of their attitude, because of their performance, et cetera, et cetera. Is that an important factor in this, where the people who are doing the work and the people that, again, I'll use the example of the top of the pyramid, they need to find a way to understand where the other is in the company in particular, but I know this is about life too, so that we can set aside this animosity and this them versus us kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to go back to the front of the book, magic here. So if you open up,
Ah.
the first three moments do exactly what you just said. The first one's architect, then it's builder, then it's custodian. And I did that intentionally to motivate, spark, challenge, um, inspire both business owners, current and future, as well as the employees, that they need to understand each other better.
Hmm.
And, I've had my Scott Abbott ABC as my interwebs for 3 decades. So I've always thought of myself as
Wow.
an architect, builder, custodian of prosperous leadership, growth, and people. And so, exactly to your point, that's why the very first 3 moments are architect and having that type of a mindset and appreciation, builder, and then custodian. Take care of things. Leave it cleaner than you found it. And I did that, yes, to provoke maybe even owners in terms of how to step up and step in, but also to provide empathy and understanding and insight to some of those that may not have been as you said, privileged or blessed, or want to be an entrepreneur or a founder, right? So I'm with you 100%. And then after those 3 moments, then we get into more of a kind of a classic definition of leadership and management and teamwork and accountability. And so I thought of those as like pillars. And then the rest is really more around the EQ side, right? How to overcome, challenges, resentment, and dynamics and conflict and courage. So yeah, we're trying to do that. We're trying to give insight to those that aren't necessarily in those seats. And certainly, you wish people would have real world experience and get their hands dirty, as you said. What's the next best thing? Well, at least to hopefully appreciate and learn and understand what it is to be in that other seat.
Yeah. I mean, somebody has to run the place. All right. Somebody has to be at the top. It's just, I mean, the way our businesses have been created and so forth, you have the hierarchy. But sometimes it's the person who's sitting in one of the hierarchical seats somehow gets this attitude of this. I have power. Oh, I can do this, and and I'm going to control these people, and I'm going to run them, and on. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. You're just a cog in the whole machine as it is yourself. You don't.
Well,
This
you've
isn't
probably
all
heard
about
it.
you.
People don't, it's been said, people don't quit their company, they quit their boss or who they're reporting to. So
Yeah.
again, I think the trend's getting better, that
Good.
the newer age is coming in, and it's not so, dictatorial like that, if you will, like I saw when I came up through the rank and file, as the expression goes. And
Mm.
and certainly there are some people who have to work for, people that they don't like.
Yeah.
In our world, to your point, we don't like the term hierarchical, right? We talk about accountability chart, not
Ah.
even an org chart, right? We don't like titles. What are your roles, accountabilities, responsibilities? How do you measure yourself? And ideally, yeah, you've got good people that want to do the work they want to do. They understand there's trade-offs, right? I mean, that's why they call it work and a job.
Yeah.
So there are, especially today, I think sometimes people do feel that they should be entitled to certain things, environmental compensation. And sure, ideally that's the case, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And I do think more bosses are becoming, again, better at understanding that than historically. But job security for us in our boss up world, I guess a lot of people still are like, hey, and the smart people realize that they can't do it themselves. Back to they want to bring people in who are going to help them upgrade and level up and do things better, because they're busy focused on the day to day, right?
Yeah.
And so it's hard to work on yourself while your head's down working in the job.
Right. I don't know if you've ever heard of this book or not. I bought the cassette series back in the mid late 1980s, and I found it on Audible, and it was exactly the same thing. I thought maybe somebody had redone it, but they actually took the exact same audio and just remastered it and digitized it. The book is called The Goal, and it is written by an Israeli by the last name of Goldratt. Now, I've tried to find him, and I found out that he's since passed away. But this was the message I got from that book. Just because we've always done it this way,
Right.
here we are in the 21st century, does that mean that that's still working for us? And the general story is of a gentleman who was put into a position of running this giant warehouse, manufacturing warehouse. And he was given 6 months to turn it around because it was a mess. The best personal example was that in 1995, I went to work in a warehouse filled with light bulbs. All right. Now, this was a government contract under the state of Arizona. And the government basically said, we've got way too much breakage and loss and this and that and the other in all of the other departments. And a lot of this stuff was military stuff, light bulbs and what have you, down to a light bulb the size of a grain of rice to these giant lighthouse type light bulbs. All right. Now here's the kicker, Scott. The warehouse was run by, or I should say, we did have a supervisor, but the workers who would go out into the warehouse and pull the light bulbs for the orders, pack them ready for shipment, as well as unpacking the trucks that would bring in the cases or pallets of light bulbs, were blind and visually impaired. I was a member of that crew. Now, get this. The military's breakage rate before we took over was upwards of 25%. Any idea what the breakage rate was when the blind people and the visually impaired people took over? Less than 1%. And I got to tell you, it was one of the most challenging jobs that I ever did. You'd put on this belt with the computer and a headset and microphone. And I wish I could remember the name of the computer's name, because something like Talkback or something like that. And you'd ask for an order and it would tell you where to go in the warehouse, and you would have to look for the SKU number and so on and so on and so on. And it was really something. And I was so proud of being a part of that crew because of what our supervisor told us about after 1 year after the other. I was there for about a year and a half. What I didn't like was in January when we had to do inventory. Oh my Lord. But it seems to me that what you just talked about is so important in terms of your own personal productivity. And letting go of the animosity and so forth, because that really does get in the way, doesn't it? That takes that energy, that animosity energy, takes away from that productivity and personal achievement. Because what we loved to do, and sometimes we would race through the warehouse to see who could pick the most orders without breakage, without running into one another, and so forth, and getting the count right. And that was sort of our internal gauge of how we did. What about the personal, the individual self-worth and accomplishment feelings in
Yeah,
regards to Boss Up?
well, it's key, and we have a boss up moments on energy. And to your point, sometimes you want a street lamp that throws off the type of lighting that's there, and sometimes you need a flashlight, or sometimes the mood is a candle, or maybe sometimes you need a laser beam. So energy is critical, and it's hard to always be your best and be mindful of what's there. But you said earlier the word goal,
Mm-hmm.
and I forgot who to give credit to on this one, but there's a quote or a saying: you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits. And so I think, again, if you try to habitualize, if I can use that word, and this is why we are, fans of structure and systems when they're good, because there's certainly bad things about them. But remember, who's behind all systems are this thing called humans.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have the right type of schedule and structure and systemized way to catch yourself when you've got the wrong energy, to readjust it and recalibrate and what to do about it, right? Maybe you just take a break, you go for a walk, you do a couple of push-ups, you read or listen or close your eyes. So that's where we really are, why we're so passionate about systems, is because, call it what you will, but if you just sort of go willy-nilly and loosey-goosey and you're just not on top of things, right? You could be in the best of spirits and the best of places, and whoop, somebody can trigger you and something throws you off. And the next thing you know, your energy goes from being positive and bright to dull and dark, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always a challenge, and therein lies why we encourage a lot of things we do around journaling and scheduling and being intentional around some things that most people take for granted: alignment and
Yeah.
energy and attitude. You with me?
I am with you. I'm with you. I swear to God, I'm with you. Let's go. Let's go. I feel like we're doing a seminar here to motivate people. And in a way we are, because quite honestly, on this program, we're looking for those new ways of living. The old ways don't work. The business models have changed. What really is unfortunate is that when we went through the COVID period and people stayed home and then we started working remotely, whoa, hey, fantastic. I get to work remotely. I get to get back to work and doing something. Obviously, if you're doing manufacturing, that's not going to work too well. But then, of course, we started to want to get back to the quote unquote normal. And a lot of people said, no, I'm productive. I'm getting the job done. Why do I need to go into the brick and mortar? I'm doing fine here. But a lot of companies, they say, no, you got to come in. Some said 100%, some said 50%, some said 25, and some said, hey, if you're being productive, you're go for it. Um, it's really to me it's exciting that you're doing this. And how long have you been doing this? I mean, this boss up concept, and you right now you have two volumes in particular of the Boss Up Moments series. The companion to Catalyst, which is volume one, is Advantage, which is volume two. And we'll talk about that as we continue with Scott Abbott, scottabottabc.com. scottabottabc.com will be linked to that website as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Reverend Dr. D. Richard Dugan. He is Scott Abbott, and I am really very excited about all of this. I want to ask you, of course, about Advantage, but first I want to ask you, in terms of your evaluation of this, I've been working in this business since 1979. All right. A 19-year-old kid who got his first big break at a radio reading service in Phoenix. That's a radio reading service for the blind and visually impaired, where they would read the newspapers, magazines, kind of like Audible is today, but the radio reading services are still there because of the periodicals that are, of course, still there. Some of them. Anyway, when I got my first commercial job, I was hired at minimum wage back then, which was $3.65 an hour. I worked there for 15 years. And when I left, I was making, are you sitting down? $7.35 an hour. Barely double. All right. Well, in this business, you don't make a lot of money unless you're really good and somebody hires you to do what you're doing, like if you're a Larry King or a Howard Stern or what have you. And yet, here I am today. I'm 65. All right. And I'm probably, if they were to break it down by the hour, probably close to $20 an hour. Now, that doesn't seem like a huge increase over 46 and a half years. However, my wife and I just moved. We just bought a house here in Twin Peaks near Lake Arrowhead. I'm still doing what I love doing. Have food on the table, obviously a roof over my head, clothes to wear, a bed to sleep in, heat, and so forth and so on. I have all of the basic elements for life. And there are so many people who keep telling me, Richard, you should monetize this and do that and try to bring it. And would I like to have 6 or 7 figures in the bank account? Absolutely. Okay. And I'm working on it. Okay. It's just, I'm a firm believer in a universal timing. Okay. Talk to us about have I screwed up my life in that respect, or have I followed the divine plan for my life, my life's purpose, and my spiritual, if you will, leanings, following that still small voice, um, and gone in the right direction? And you don't have to be specific towards me, but people who are listening and watching this conversation, are probably in the same situation. And a lot of people are complaining about the economy and so on and so forth. And it's like, when I was only making a minimum wage, I was also given the opportunity to start doing interviews. And I was given free time. I wasn't charged for it. So I would set up interviews just like yours, and I would get a copy I'd get a copy of the book, and I can't, it doesn't show up. I don't know why. Anyway, I'd get the experience, I'd get the contact, I'd get the connection and the friendship sometimes where I'd have them on a number of times. In other words, I went down the laundry list of those things that I was getting, even though I wasn't making more money. I was getting compensated in other ways. Can you talk to us a little bit about how people, how we can make that shift if we haven't yet? Because I believe that I have, and it's not to say that we haven't struggled, but hey, I'm here. So talk to us.
Yeah. Well, I think if we're just being brutally candid, there's always trade-offs. Um, and this whole work-life balance thing, I think is actually a problematic concept. To your point, it always feels like if you're going to do that, it's almost work-life imbalance because they just so don't seem to go together. So I think it's important for everybody to be real and keep it real, and be matter of fact about the trade-offs in terms of where they want to work and why, what do they want to make and how, who do they want to be and where, and that takes time. And sometimes you get out the best plans, but as my priest father Kevin likes to say, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. And so I think it's this blend of faith, to your point, and faith's actually a moment in the book, both from irrespective of what your spiritual beliefs are, right? You got to have some degree of faith that certain things will get done, even though you can't see it.
Right.
And you got to believe that if you have done what you should be doing in terms of taking care of your health and being responsible and accountable, right? Wearing your seatbelt when you drive, a lot of things are gonna if not eliminate, decrease the downsides of how you live and work. And so I just think, all too often this word compromise is seen as a bit of a pejorative
Mhm.
but I don't think it is, right? Again, trade-offs, compromise, and you got to keep it real. And certainly, back to your compensation on minimum wage and $3, and I'm not that kind of an entrepreneur. That's for the Grant Cardones of the world to, hoot and holler about how to make more money. Ain't my thing, man, either. But I do think you want to ideally have a life that you're comfortable with, in the right ways, because too much comfort can get you in trouble. And obviously you don't want to be desperate or sad or struggling. And that's why hopefully through your show and people that are in the world to try to mentor and coach and nurture and encourage others to see maybe the light that they can't see always, to give them a helping hand, and encourage them to do their best to appreciate what we just talked about and how to find that harmony between income and compensation and work and what they want to do and how they want to do it. And it's definitely something that's not easy, but if you do it right, you can find that harmony.
It's funny too, because working remotely now 100%. And I did enjoy going into the studio. I really did. It was a different venue and so forth, different energy. But the biggest challenge that I have is keeping track of the days. What day is it? What am I supposed to be doing? That's, but it's nice because I'm here with my wife, and we're still unpacking. I mean, we moved in here in October of 2025, and we're still unpacking here in January of 26. We probably will be for another few days or weeks, and that's fine because now we don't have to rush. Whereas when
Well,
you're packing, you got to
hey,
hurry.
hey, look, I still got a Christmas tree behind me, so don't sweat it.
I see
Why?
that.
That's a little bit of a jinx on the whole IU Hoosiers. They came over. They said, I said, I'm keeping that tree up until the Indiana wins the Natty. So that's actually the true story. But to your point, you know, find your speed, find your rhythm, find your groove. And by the way, you're never going to find it completely, right?
Right.
Again, I get back to, if you're not growing, you don't find yourself. You develop yourself. You create
That's,
yourself.
that's it.
You do. So So yeah, that's why thank you for what you do. That's hopefully people are listening, and these moments of inspiration or insight that are either get a challenge or encourage. I just wish people would do more of that, because if they did, then they'd find a better sweet spot between
Right.
idealism on compensation or income and reality with regard to what they really need and what they really want.
Absolutely. Well, folks, I hope that you will stick with us because I've got a few more things I want to talk with our very special guest, Scott Abbott of scottabottabc.com. The book is entitled, or the series, I should say, Volume 1 is Boss-Up Moments, and the volume is entitled Catalyst, because there is magic in them thar pages as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I am Reverend Dr. D, losing his voice here, but I want to share something with you folks. Questions for you. Do you want to optimize your vision, productivity, and results? What about would you like to maximize your time, talents, and teamwork? And are you passionate about leadership, growth, and prosperity? Oh, who's not excited about prosperity? Please, in your business, work, and life. And hopefully you answered yes to all of those questions. It's real interesting, Scott Abbott, who's joining us here on the program, talking about his book, Boss Up, at scottabottabc.com. What is it that took you down this path to create this model, if you will, Boss Up? What was the I'm going to use the subtitle
Well,
of
the
the
catalyst.
volume
Yeah.
one. What was the catalyst?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've been like all of us. I've had good and bad. I've been blessed and discouraged. And in my profession, I've spent most of my career doing technology, systems integration, large enterprise grade technical consulting solutions projects, and they've always typically been hard and difficult and expensive, pre-boss up, by the way. And I just felt that there was a way to liberate and to make more accessible what we call the essential concepts, tools, and disciplines to help businesses, leaders, and organizations build, run, and scale better than they do on their own if they didn't do what we do. And so I just really had this purpose, cause, passion, and I'm what I like to call a humanitarian capitalist. In fact, we're a social enterprise, so we love to give back. But what we did is we went into the lab, and after a couple of years of intense R&D and development, we created what we now have, which is called the Boss-Up Coaching Solution Academy. And it's going great. It's been phenomenal. It's been a labor of love, as they say. And then I think, to your point, what's going on in society and everything from the good and the bad of schools and the socioeconomics and what have you, I just felt there had to be this fusion of good classic curriculum-based learning and that model, to use the word you used earlier, tucked in with the modern tools around like AI and mobile devices and video and how people engage on social media, ideally in better ways, not bad ways, and package it in a way that, again, is accessible, is fun, is affordable, and that's what we did. So it really is from a lot of experience of what I've done right and wrong. I've had a lot of wonderful mentors and coaches and people who have poured into us and me to help us get here. And so far, so good.
I want to ask you about that one element that you just brought up, AI. I did an interview with an author who wanted to talk about not only his book, but also the way he created it. And when we started the interview, I was very blunt and I said, look, I have an issue with AI. I have a bias against AI. Okay. And I said what I said and so forth. However, I said, our guest may very well turn that around a little bit. So we'll see what happens. And when we got to the end of the interview, he had changed my mind about AI, because here was the way he did it. He says, yeah, I write my books using AI, but here's how the process works. I go to AI and I say, I want to write a story about, and I put in all the particulars, and I punch that into the old IBM, as it were, and out comes the answer, a book that AI has written. And that is the last time that I use AI, because AI only creates the draft. Then I go through and I put myself into it. All right. And I'm going, all right, it's a tool. That's all it is. But what about this concern over people fearing AI taking all of these different jobs? And then I look back through the last 20, 30, maybe more years where we have incorporated robotics into especially manufacturing and so forth, that you still need human beings to take care of the machines and so on and so on and so on. Do you think that the fear of AI is, from your perspective, Scott, um, the fear is misplaced, it's misunderstood, and that there really isn't anything to fear about this new technology, which is really a tool? Or are we doomed and you and I are going to be on the streets panhandling for what's not there because AI has taken over the planet?
Yeah, well, one of the concepts we teach is neither a cynic nor an optimist be. We try to encourage the mindset of positive pragmatism. And like most things, that basically says and both, not either or. And I think, I was there at the advent of the internet. I was an internet pioneer back in the day. Speaking of IBM, I started some of the first e-business internet companies in partnership with IBM in the mid 90s. So I've been down this scary, exciting, don't know what we don't know road. And in fact, true story, my last class of college in 89 was actually on AI and machine learning. So AI is not necessarily new. ChatGPT made it more commercial than it had ever been before. And I would say where my perspective is a little bit maybe like the author, you've got to own it. It's your ally. It's if at most it's a co-pilot. If you do let it lead and finish and send, rubbish, then you're being lazy. And even if the technology was foolproof and it didn't have these moments of hallucination and silliness, you got to humanize it. You got to put your stamp on the front and the back. Now, do I think that it's an aggregator? Do I think it provides additional points of IQ? I did a video that AI, if done right, can provide 50 extra IQ points, which puts you up there with Einstein and some of the smarter people than I am. So it's a compliment. It's not in lieu of. And so that takes human commitment. That
Yeah.
takes team commitment. If you're in a company right now, you've got to have some agreement-based commitments in terms of how we use AI and when and where and to what degree. So I don't think at this moment it's the dark stuff of eating your brain and taking all of our gigs away. Certainly, it is driving efficiency. It is driving realignment in the workplace. There's no doubt about that. And we're going to have to adjust, right? Back to evolution. One of the moments is on adaptability. And, famed Darwin didn't say it was survival of the strongest, it's survival of the fittest. So you do have to adapt. You have to adopt. AI's not going away. And I would just encourage everybody to figure out how to coexist, leverage and harness. And remember, humans should always have the first and the final say.
Well, if anybody has seen our new logo for 2026, and I change them every year so as to be able to, number one, differentiate between one year and the next, I actually went to ChatGPT and I said, I would like to create a logo, and I gave it all the parameters, and it came up with what people are now seeing for 2026, and it is, people really like it. And I like it more importantly, because it has almost everything. I did forget to say, oh, and 2026, the number 2026 needs to be in there somewhere for the year. I put it in using Photoshop, so it's in there. Um, so I'm utilizing it here and there, little at a time. But I also know too that AI cannot take my place in terms of these conversations, simply because, as I say, Scott, the universe asks the questions. I'm just along for the ride. And how do I know that the universe is an AI? I mean, we, or that we're not in a hologram or a holodeck, if you will, and this is just a computer program. And somewhere along the way, someone's going to say, "Computer, end program," and we all just go back into energy. But in the meantime, before we ever find that out, it is to me fascinating how this whole concept. I mean, like I said, I'm beginning to, I don't want to say embrace it, but at least I'm beginning to accept not only the reality, but also learning to, and the word in the, and one of those words in the acronym CLEAR, resilience. We human beings are just that, aren't they? We are a resilient species. And I don't think there was ever the hoopla over a rock versus the creation of the hammer. I know there was over the creation of the automobile over the horse and buggy. I know there was a hoopla over the telephone rather than going to the house of the person you wanted to talk with, and all of the technological advances that we've had. And my goodness, my father, who was 91 when he passed away a couple of years ago, he was born in 31. And I used to think about all of the things he's seen change over his 91 years and the changes I've seen. And by the way, you and I share a somewhat similar background. In 1994, I started building computers. I'd buy the tower and then I'd get all the peripherals and the motherboard and I would put them together. And for me, it was going back to my teen years building models. Only this was a working model. It had functionality and all that good stuff. I got to tell you how much fun that was. I know you could still do it today, but it is a little different. But that was a great time to learn about all of the different things. I remember one of the sound cards that I bought had this external port where you'd plug all of your audio into it, and then you take your outs and send it to where you're recording and all of that good stuff. That was a great time. So thank you for your part in all of that too. What about that aspect of recognizing, acknowledging, and being grateful for the contributions of the people who have come before, rather than this phrase that I hear, I did it all by myself? I personally am beholden to thousands
Yep.
and thousands of people for where I am right now talking to you.
Yeah. Well, the last moment in the book, very intentionally, is gratitude. And to your point, right? There's no self-made people. Now, do you need to be personally accountable and own your situation and what you should do or shouldn't do? 100%. But absolutely, you should have gratitude, even if things aren't the way you want it to. You know, you've probably heard this before. There's somebody in the world, probably maybe millions of people in the world, who would love to be in your situation,
Yeah.
as crummy as you may think it is. And so I think, yeah, it's not easy, and that's why I encourage these things called commitment devices, tattoos, bracelets, insignias, something physical that reminds you to have gratitude. It's what these are, that remind you to keep the right. I call it PAM: perspective, attitude, aptitude, and mindfulness. And again, back to the word harmony versus balance. You're gonna have good days and bad. You're gonna have seasons of highs and lows. They have a timeline that you're not certain of. But ideally, the hope, the pray, the wish is that most people do appreciate and give appreciation to others, and then as the expression goes, pays it forward, right? Helps bring up other people and invest in other people, and everything from tithing to philanthropy to just sharing a positive word. Or one of the silly things that I do is, when I check out at the grocery store, I look at the person's name badge and I give them a wink and a hi, Sue, Bill, Bob, Mary, and just say with sincere eye contact, how are you doing today?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
happy day. And so just subtle little moments can make a big impact for a lot of people, the ripple effect or the butterfly effect, whatever you want to call it. So gratitude's a wonderful word, my friend. And
Yeah.
and yes, ideally we're sharing and embracing and doing our best to be mindful of gratitude and grace. You did use the word grit earlier, right? I think
Yep.
they go together like milk and cookies and peanut butter and jelly.
Hmm.
Grace without grit can get you into trouble, and grit without grace is intimidating and bullying. So you always got to find that duality.
Absolutely. Um, I will say that in those situations, like at the grocery store, I usually will ask them, say, how you doing? Just like you said. And then as I'm walking away, I'll turn around and say, and blessings. And they will say, same to you. I do the same thing on phone calls. At the end of the conversation, hey, we'll talk to you later. Okay, talk to you later. Bye-bye. Blessings to you. And they, oh, you too. But one of the most amazing things on some of these conversations when I call like my vendors, for example, the electric, gas company, etc., is the conversation starts out, they will ask you, because it's part of their script, and how are you doing today, Mr. Dugan or Richard? Oh, I'm doing great. How about you? It says, well, I'm doing quite well. Thank you for asking. I don't know that that's part of their script. See, I used to work in MLMs and other places like that where incoming calls were, and you had a protocol of scripts that you had to follow. But I don't think that's in there because really they just want to get you in and out for the most part. But I have really enjoyed those kinds of conversations. And I will tell you, talking about gratitude and grace in those conversations, my motivation is to get something. Like, could you reverse that late fee or could you reverse that NSF charge and so on and so forth? I know they don't make the rules. So I'm kind to them. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I always get what I'm asking for, but it sure makes the conversation a whole lot easier. And when I got off the phone, I feel a heck of a lot better than yelling at them and, well, what do you mean you can't? Because where does that get you? So I'm grateful for that. Scott, I know that we're running short on time, so I'm just going to thank you so much for joining us. But a reminder, too, that you are listening to Tell Me Your Story. I am Reverend Dr. D with Scott Abbott, Scott Abbott, ABC.com. The book is Boss-Up. It's a series, actually. We're talking today, of course, about Catalyst. Love to have you back to talk about Advantage in the book series of Boss-Up, Scott. And also, thank you again for being a part of the work we're doing here to, as I phrase it, look for those new ways of living because the old ways don't work. All you have to do is look around. They are not working. That doesn't mean that it's over. It actually means that it's just begun, and that is what's so exciting. So thank you for being a part of what we're doing here.
Thank you, Dr. D. Appreciate you and your audience, your listeners. Thank you.
I have three final questions I ask all of my guests. I will ask you in just a moment. But first, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m. for a special edition of Tell Me Your Story, and then Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. All those 9 times streaming live at richarddugan.com with podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. We're on YouTube where you can watch these conversations and get to know Scott a little bit better because you'll see his bright smiling face there. And we also hope that you will go to Amazon to pick up a copy of Choices, my book, Choices, 5 Steps for Life, in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle. We also hope that you can leave us a tip. Our tip jar is labeled PayPal. And if you go to the top of richarddugan.com, there are links to both Amazon for Choices and PayPal for tip. And finally, we ask that you take some time during this decade of perfect vision to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And I told you earlier that the universe asks the questions and I'm just along for the ride, Scott. Well, the impression I'm getting right now is I have to mention this, and this applies to pretty much everything we've talked about. There's a line in an Irish song that goes like this, and it applies not just to the land, it applies to everything in this world. You don't own the land owns you. You don't own the business owns you. You don't own the house owns you. Now, those last few were mine, but the one on the land was from the Irish song. Anyway, to those 3 final questions. The first is, who is Scott Abbott?
Well, I'm going to stick to, without sounding cliche, my book, metaphorically and literally. I'm an architect, builder, custodian of prosperous leadership, companies, and lives. And I'm blessed that I'm in a place right now in my life where I can give back and invest in others and help others get to hopefully the duality of both progress and momentum. So that's what I'm about. And, certainly my family, my own world is very important to me at the same time.
What gets you up in the morning?
You said it earlier. I think the concept servant leadership is near and dear to my heart. Um, I do believe that all boats can rise when you pour in and invest in others. I think you get it back. When you put good into the world, it does come back to you, even if people can't see it. In fact, sometimes it's better when people don't know that it's actually being done. That's pretty cool too.
Hmm. And finally, this is from the movie City Slickers. They were riding and they were talking to one another, and the question was, and is to you, what was your best day?
Yeah, well, you made me smile because I haven't seen that movie in a while, but I love the movie, and I'm a movie buff. Um, I feel like my answer is an answer I have when people ask me what's the most important part, right? Head, heart, brains, brawn, and I think it's all of the above.
Hmm.
And I mean, I've had some really good days, but I'd also tell you some of my best days were not my best days, because that inspired me to get out of that funk. That inspired me to say, I don't like this, I don't want this, and I can do better. So, I don't want to go all David Goggins, but sometimes you got to kind of yell at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, listen, buckaroo. So, that may not be the exact answer to the question, but I think I'm going to take a longer view on it and say, even back to my whole carpe momentum, we've got carpe diem, carpe vita, but you don't result in results. You don't day in a day. You got to bring yourself, your assets, and awareness. And again, I'm going to even use words like systems and structure to make it the best day that you can make it.
Absolutely. I also would like to extend a hello and how are you to your audience behind you. If I'm viewing it correctly, it looks like there's someone sleeping there on the couch, and if I'm incorrect, nonetheless, I say hello to our audience and thank you once again, Scott, for being a part of the work we're doing.
Thank you. That's Harley, by the way, a little rescue dog we took in our world, thankfully, about a year ago. So Harley
Wonderful.
says thank you too, by the way, for
Uh,
for being part of this.
yeah, well, we're waiting for our dog to come to us. We've had dogs throughout our relationship, my wife and I, for 28 years. We just laid to rest our latest animal, Angus, back in June before we left Santa Barbara. And so because we firmly believe we don't find them,
Yeah,
they find us.
yeah.
So we're hoping for that
Great,
as
great,
well.
great, great, great philosophy. Yeah, our last rescue was put down recently too. So we're thinking about, in fact, I've had some neighbors send me some posts about dogs that need homes, but it's on the list. We
Yeah,
usually have two at the same time, and Harley's an only child right now. We're
yeah.
gonna do something about that.
Well, we're going down that road too, probably with two in this big 1,430 square foot house.
There you go.
Anyway, thank you again, Scott. Thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, video cast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for letting me be in your life and being in mine. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.